Moving on, members of Nelson Mandela's family are furious over recent images released by the media showing the former South African president looking weak and bewildered. That's just one of the stories making headlines in Africa that has people talking. And here to fill us in on all of them is journalist Frankie Edozian. Frankie, it's always good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Good morning to you. So tell us about these pictures. How did this even happen?
Oh my God. So Jacob Zuma, who's the president of South Africa, and his colleagues in the African National Congress, they're really going through a very, very tough time right now. Next year there's going to be elections. They're really looking quite weak. There's joblessness, wealth inequality over there. So what they've done, they've tried to hitch their star to the beautiful Mandela name by going to see the Madiba, as we call him, and paying homage to him and telling everyone, we know Madiba's been sick, but here he is. He's alive, he's well, and he's really still with the ANC. Problem was, he's 94, he's sick. His family did not know that they were going to release those pictures, and he doesn't come off looking good. He really looks faltering and sick. And so that has sparked a furor in South Africa on two levels. One, because it has made a lot of Africans, really, not just South Africans, but people the world over, realize that the Madiba is not going to be around forever. He is not immortal. He is a great man, and we want to have this image of him as always being the strong, defiant one. These images don't show that. They show a very weak, sick, 94-year-old man.
The plan backfired.
It kind of backfired, yes. And the other problem was that the family welcomed the ANC in and welcomed President Zuma in, but they had no idea that these pictures were going to make their way all the way around the world on SABC television. And you know, anytime the Madiba is sick, everyone kind of like has heart palpitations.
Right.
Oh my God, 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 what's happening to Madiba? However, we really did not need to see him clutching onto the chair, looking completely out of it, just for the political fortunes of the ANC. So that's part of one of the things that people are really, really ticked off about.
Frankie, you know what really disturbs me? All those years we covered Mr. Mandela, his security and PR, everybody around him would say, no flashing cameras. Remember?
Yes.
Because of his eyes, the limestone mines.
From the Robben Island
Correct.
prisons, yeah.
In this recent scene, cameras were flashing all over the place. That was really disturbing. It's like he doesn't feel it anymore.
It was so awful because he looked so out of it. And let's face it, the Madiba's name, Mandela, is really gold when it comes to political virtuosity and stuff. So for the idea that the ANC would sort of like just trot him out to sort of shore up their own fallen political fortunes was really just unnerving for a lot of people.
It's an unfortunate decision. Let's move on, because we could talk for the rest of the show about
Madiba,
Madiba, but let's move on to Boko Haram. And we've been reporting even this week, since Jeff has been here, about their activities and violence. Now there's a report that they've been paid a ransom for kidnapping a family.
Yes, so the French family, there was a family of 7 in Cameroon, were released like last week in Nigeria. And they were actually sort of kidnapped in Cameroon and brought over to Nigeria and hidden. And just a few days ago, Reuters received a very secret Nigerian report saying that Boko Haram was paid $3.1 million.
Say that again?
3.1 US dollars.
Wow.
Yes, 3.1 million US dollars. And given their prisoners in Cameroon were let go. And the idea was that also Boko Haram was insistent up until the last minute that they actually wanted $7 million. You know,
But
It's
Frankie,
outrageous.
what precedent does this set?
well, this is a problem for the United States, and it's a problem for all the people who fight terrorism, because Boko Haram now has enough money because Boko Haram is not in this for the money. They don't kidnap so that people can pay them ransom. They kidnap so that they can destroy the government. Now they have the opportunity to go and get more rocket-propelled grenades and more bombs and more things that they can sort of like try to destroy the Nigerian government with. So this is a really big problem. The other major problem that's come out of this is that there's now a splinter group called Ansaru, which has now said our mission is now going to be to kidnap foreigners, and anyone who is a diplomat or working with the Nigerian government who is against terrorism, we will kidnap them because they can pay and because they work with the Nigerian
Now,
government.
do we know that this is true because the French government has denied it, Nigerian government has denied it, or they've said no comment?
Well, they've said no comment. The Nigerian government says no comment. The French government says we don't pay. But here's the thing. The French have had a history of paying for ransom, and this has rankled the United States for years, which doesn't do things that way. And even as recently as 2010, the United States diplomats have accused the French of paying money for ransom for hostages that ended up being killed. So now the French have a new policy saying we don't pay for ransoms anymore, but that's new. And according to this document, somebody, either it's GDF Suez, which is the employer, or Paul Biya, the Cameroonian president, or the French somehow funneled 3.1 million to Boko Haram.
It'd be interesting to see what their activity is out after this in terms of how much money they have available to them.
And the Cameroonian president was quick to take credit, by the way, for the release of the hostages. I don't know if you remember, Frankie.
Yes, absolutely, which makes people think, well, maybe he is the one who was the conduit. We don't know for sure, but what we do know is that Boko Haram got $3.1 million.
And hopefully it doesn't mean that they'll do it again because they got away with it this time.
Well, you can hope that all you want, but this is going to be a precedent if that's true. I want to move us along.
Yes.
It is awful. But there's something else that's equally awful. There's a tradition of ritual killings of babies in Ghana. Tell us about that.
Sure. So here's the thing about African culture. It's really not static. And 60, 70 years ago, it was not uncommon for people who have multiple births to have 1 or 2 or 3 of the triplets thrown away because people thought that was what animals did. Human beings don't have 2 or 3 children. In northern Ghana, in parts of northern Ghana, in a very remote area, if you have a child that's born with a disability, people believe that it is some kind of spirit and some kind of misfortune will come to you. And so they go to this sort of herbalist people who give the babies a concoction and then they die. And now, with a lot of education and a lot of pressure, some of the northern rulers in 7 towns in northern Ghana have said, this cannot happen anymore. These children have to be taken care of. These are not spirit children. The issue with that is that a lot of those women don't have access to even midwives. So there is a high prevalence of people giving birth with children with birth defects because they rarely see a doctor. Prenatal, postnatal, I mean, they just have a baby. And when that happens, a child comes out looking a little different. It's like, oh, this is the cause of all my problems. And so now there's been some journalists who've gone in there and sort of like try to take dummy babies and say, oh, this is a baby, give him a concoction. And they've captured all of this. And with a lot of pressure, traditional rulers are saying no more. It's going to take a while, but it will happen.
That's good news that they have said that. We've got one more topic that I want us to leave time for, and that is the Somali pirates. We've seen all these interviews talking about what they did, and now we found out they're not even pirates.
Isn't that something?
Catch everybody up. Tell us the story.
So for years, I mean, we all know about what's been going on the Somali coast. Piracy is a really, really big deal. In 2011, I think there were at least 176 pirate incidents. Last year, there were 34. This year, so far, 5. What this means is that there has been a lot of people trying to find these pirates, trying to get interviews with them. And it turns out that in Kenya, there are some people running this great scam that a lot of journalists unfortunately have fallen into prey to in getting these people who they think are actual pirates, but these people are just looking for money. They make up to $200 a day. They're actors. And so one of them said, hey, the white man comes, he needs a pirate, and we act for him.
And we have a quote from one of them. Look, it's on the screen. It says, we pretend because we have the talent. They, the journalists, go to the boss and say, we need pirates. The boss comes to us and says, the white man needs pirates. So we say, pretend to be a pirate.
If only for a day.
If only for, well, the problem with this is that there's one particular guy named Bashir who has been pretending for 2 or 3 years. He's been in several documentaries. He's been featured in Time magazine. He's been featured in many newspapers around the world. And everybody thinks he's a pirate, but he's just collecting $200 a day.
And what is he? A storekeeper or something?
Well, he works in, there's 2 of them. One works in a restaurant in Nairobi, and the other one is just trying to find work. And he says, there are no pirates here.
Wow. If piracy weren't so serious, it would be hilarious. But how scandalous it is. Frankie and Desi, it's always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Come back and see us again soon.
Good to see you, Frank.
This is Arise America.